Good morning, everyone. I'd like to thank the organizer for the opportunity to present my research to a broader audience, and um, I'm looking for collaborations out of this presentation. So I'm going to talk about ultrafast X-ray and ultrafast XUV and X-ray spectroscopy of charge dynamics. So this slide is showing you some of the motivations for my research and the collaborations I'm seeking. So we use attosecond photon sources, and we like to advance attosecond technology and broaden its applications in fundamental sciences and applied science research. And specifically, we like to probe electron dynamics at its natural time scale, which is attosecond, that is 10 to minus 18 seconds. We aim to gain insight into the very first step of a chemical reaction process, that is when the electrons start to move. And also taking advantage of X-ray, which can give the element specificity. We like to probe electronic evolution at fundamental spatial scale, that is atomic scale. And ultimately, we're seeking photo control schemes of electron and ion dynamics, and that is a type of engineering control of photoreactions and photo-induced processes and the outcomes. And these projects and the goals align with scientific priorities of several funding agencies, such as the Department of Energy, NSF, and Department of Defense in the corresponding research fields. And they also align with the goals of these funding agencies to enhance the competitiveness of US in the attosecond photon source technology and in the research field in attosecond physics, atomic, molecular, and optical physics, and plasma physics, and other relevant research fields. And since the experimental approach we use can be applied in certain type of research in chemistry, such as physical chemistry, and also materials research, for example, condensed matter research or material processing. So I'm hoping that there will be fruitful collaborations with researchers from those research areas. And also, since I'm building a new research lab, and we do hire students from other colleges, and I hope to have a student trained in a multidisciplinary environment, and from engineering, chemistry, materials, math, etc. So this slide is showing you just about the attosecond photon sources we are using, and also the specific physical phenomena we're interested in investigating. So we will be using both tabletop XUV X-ray photon sources based on high harmonic generation processes, and also ultrafast X-ray lasers, that is the free electron lasers. And typically you have those lasers at with large scale facilities. You can find them at a national lab or international lab or facilities. So in the US, in the recent years, attosecond duration of ultrafast X-ray lasers has been achieved. So the figure on the right is showing you just a comparison of these two different types of X-ray sources. So around this region, you will see that is where the tabletop X-ray sources in, and the plot is in the x-axis is photon energy and the y-axis is pulse energy. So the advantage of tabletop X-ray photon sources is the short pulse duration. So the shortest pulse duration has been achieved is around 50 attoseconds. And for the X-rays from free electron laser is up here. And the big advantage of free electron laser is the high pulse energy that is bigger than compared to the high harmonic generation tabletop source by order of magnitude of 6 to 8. So using those photon sources, we like to investigate electron motion and the corresponding ion dynamics. And ultimately, we like to have some basis for photo control of the charge dynamics. So this cartoon is showing you a few phenomena we're interested in investigating. So when the photon source is interacting with atoms or molecules, it will be induced, the charge transfer or migration will be induced. That is, electron will hop or move between different atomic sites. And after that, consequently, you'll see the bond breaking of the molecules. And then consequently, you'll see dissociation molecules. And if we're interacting with the ensemble of a large number of atoms or molecules, you see the interaction between electron-electron and ion-ion electron-ions. That's many about interactions. And you'll see the acceleration of ions and also acceleration of electrons, and also the formation of nanoplasmas and the fragmentation of nanoplasmas. So next, I'm gonna just briefly introduce the principles of ultrafast X-ray spectroscopy with attosecond temporal resolution and atomic spatial resolution. So the idea is, with conventional fully electron spectroscopy, the binding energy of the specific element is characteristic. So as shown in the conventional PES spectrum, you will see for each different atoms, you will see a spectral peak. For example, here is for the carbon, and here is for the oxygen. So that is taking advantage of the binding energy which is the ionization potential of the core electron or inner shell electron to the continuum. So now if we have a vacancy at the outer shell, and this binding energy of the deeper shell electron will be shifted, as shown in this figure, and this shift is unique. And we can make use of this shift to identify at what atomic site this valence vacancy is located. So that is what we call a new type of PES that is sensitive to the valence and inner valence vacancies. So under this project, we're aiming to realize the spectroscopy with attosecond resolution and also atomic spatial resolution. And we use a pump probe scheme to make a movie of the motion of electron and ions. And since we're using XUV and X-ray photon energies, we are able to study the dynamics of the electrons from the core shell and from the deeper inner shell. Another theme of my research is photo-induced nanoplasma clusters. So the clusters we're interested in is van der Waals cluster, which means we have an ensemble of molecules and atoms, and they are bound by weak force as a weak force of van der Waals bond. And there's some information about the bonds we're interested in that can lead to probably broader audience for collaboration. Van der Waals bond exists in most materials. It's a strong secondary bond and can influence the primary bond activities within clusters and determine material properties. And if we're using for a molecular cluster, including hydrogen bond, which exists in water and organic systems and provide many of the crucial critical life-sustaining properties of water and stabilizing the structure of proteins and DNA. And one of the sub-projects is we're interested in molecular clusters, and we want to see how does the chemical bond impact the cluster charge dynamics. A second sub-project we'll be carrying out is the photo control of nanoplasma properties. So in the video I'm showing here is a simulation of expansion of nanoplasmas induced in clusters. So on the left side, that is cluster expansion induced by an IR laser at 3,000 nanometer. And on the right side, you will see the nanoplasma expansion induced by a near infrared laser at 800 nanometer. So the colorful dots here represents the ions after ionization of the clusters. The color represents the charge states of the ions. As you can see in the comparison, At longer wavelengths, we're producing less charged states, and the whole expansion speed is slower than compared to that produced by a shorter wavelength. So that indicates that with the control of photon wavelengths, we can control the temperature of the nanoplasmas. Okay, so the next slide, I'm going to just introduce you briefly about the experimental approach, the main experimental approach we'll be using, the spectroscopic method, 3-dimensional momentum imaging, and the electron ion coincidence measurement. Sorry, I don't, okay, here we go. So in the interaction region where the molecule interacts with the photon source or photon beam, the target will be ionized in producing ions and electrons. And those ions and electrons in the electric field, external electric field will fly in opposite directions and arrive detects on each side. So on each side, the detector can register both the time of flight, which it takes from the interaction region to the detector, and also the position of the impact. So from that information, we'll be able to extract the full information of 3-dimensional momentum. And since we're detecting both ions and electrons for each single, at the same time, for each single ionization event, we'll obtain the full kinematically resolved information of the charged particles. That is the full picture of the kinetics of the interaction. So that is my last slide. At the end, we're a young team, and we do have students from engineering, and I believe they're having a good time working in the lab and building instrument. And I'd like to thank the DOE for the funding support. Part of the project is funded by DOE Early Career. And thank you for your attention.